Hi, my name is Rick, and welcome to Rick's Bass Fishing Bible. Today, I want to have a session on Bass Fishing 101. It's the basics of rod, reel, and line setup. And it's probably about a 30-minute video, and hope to teach you everything I know. I am not a pro. I've fished a couple weekend tournaments. I'm just a weekend warrior, the amateur guy that's just, I try to bass fish every opportunity I have, and learning and growing, and I want to share everything I know. To start with, the question I've been asked a lot is, why do you have so many rods? I have 10 rods that I use most of the time, given the scenario, whatever it may be. The analogy is also like golf. You can take one club and you can make your way around a golf course. You can even use a putter if you wanted to, and you could eventually finish 18 holes. But if you want to score good in golf, you got to have clubs that meet the requirements of your shot. You have to have an assortment. That's why you have a bag full of golf clubs. Same principle applies with fishing. You can have one rod and you can catch bass. I started out with a cherry wood 6'6" medium heavy action rod with a Zebco 33 reel. I remember it had a 12-pound test on it, and that's how I started bass fishing. My wife now has that rod and reel, and she uses it. She likes it. But I wanted to develop more, and I wanted to learn more ways to fish and ways to catch bass. And so I have 10 different rods. I've got them lined up here, and I'm going to take you through all of them. And basically, let me start with some basics here. There are 4 basic scenarios that we're going to cover. We're going to cover spinning rod fishing. We're going to cover topwater fishing. We're going to cover worms and jig fishing, and we're going to cover crankbaits and spinnerbaits in those 4 categories. We'll start here with my spinning rod. Over the years, I've been blessed to have a lot of friends who are really good fishermen. I've got one particular friend, he fishes a lot of tournaments. He should be a pro, but he's got a career that he's focusing on, and that's cool. But he's had companies that have given him rods, and after he uses them for a season or 2, he'll pass them down to me. And so I've been very blessed to get some really expensive rods free, or at least very, very cheap. This particular setup I'm about to show you, this was a Christmas present. Tell people that you want Christmas presents, fishing goods, Bass Pro gift cards, Walmart gift cards, Academy Sports gift cards, things like that. This is a Berkley lightning rod, 7-foot medium spinning action. I have a Lew's 5.2. This is my 5.2 reel here. Lew's Speedspool 100. It's a 5:2 to 1 ratio. Later on in the video, I'm going to talk about the ratios and why that's important. It's rigged with 17-pound nano fill line. You'll look here at the picture, and you'll be able to tell that this is a white braid type line. Nano fill is a little more expensive, but it has almost zero memory, and I almost never loop it on the reel. A lot of times, those of you who are spin cast fishermen, these spinning rods, you'll cast it and the line will loop out. You'll get it twisted up in there, especially if you use monofilament line and even certain fluorocarbon lines. But this particular braid, this nano fill, is an excellent line for this. And then also, I have on here, this particular setup I have right here is for wacky worm fishing. I'll explain that in a little bit. Let me get this hook out of here if I can. I don't know if you can see this or not. The idea is that you can't see the line because this is fluorocarbon line. It's very, very difficult to see. One of the things I like about it is when it's underwater, fish can't see it. This fluorocarbon line, it does not float. It sinks, which helps you get your bait down. You'll notice right here I have these 2 lines tied together. I don't know if you can see that or not. I used it's the improved knot, a double improved knot that works together, that hooks these 2 lines together. My leader line is about 3.5, 4 foot long, and that's all you really need. If I'm taking somebody fishing with me and they're not comfortable throwing a bait caster, but they're used to these kind of reels, these spinning reels, I give them this rod. 2 weekends ago, I took a friend of mine bass fishing. He's not comfortable with the bait casters. I put this rod in his hand. This exact setup, put a Senko worm on there, and he caught a 3.5-pound largemouth. on this particular setup. This is 8-pound fluorocarbon. Depending on the weather and the conditions, you can go down to 6-pound, 4-pound. I like 8-pound. It just seems to work out best for what I do. I've also used this rod for jerkbait fishing. I've also used this rod for small spinnerbaits, not big ones, small ones, especially rooster tails, things like that. This is a great rod for that setup. Moving right along. Topwater rods. I have 2 topwater rods. This one is a Bass Pro Express, 6 foot, 6 inch, medium heavy action. I have 17-pound monofilament line on this, and you'll see I have a buzzbait tied onto it. I use this rod for buzzbaits and zero spooks, any bait that's a walking bait. This is a nice, stiff rod, and then I team it up here with this 17-pound monofilament. Monofilament, let me talk about that a little bit. The difference between monofilament and fluorocarbon. Again, fluorocarbon does not float, it sinks. So any bait that you need to sink or you need to get down to the bottom, fluorocarbon is a great line to use. I like Vicious. You buy it at Walmart. Vicious brand is excellent. It's very non-abrasive. I run it through all kinds of brush and rocks and stuff, and it stands up to the test. Also use a lot of Seagar. There's Seagar Invisex, Seagar Red Label, different Seagar brands. Those are great fluorocarbon lines. Again, fluorocarbon sinks. Fluorocarbon is almost impossible for a fish to see it, whereas monofilament line, it does reflect sunlight, and so they can see monofilament in the water. They cannot see fluorocarbon in the water. Another big difference is monofilament line stretches. Fluorocarbon line does not stretch. When you're throwing a buzzbait or a walking bait, a spook or something like that, you need a stiff rod to be able to walk it. You also need your line to float to keep your buzzbait up. It helps keep your pop-art, or not your pop-arts, but your zero spooks up. This line floats on top of the water, and so it helps keep your bait up. This line also stretches. That's good whenever you go to set the hook. You know, sometimes if a fish catches it toward the side of his mouth, real tender spot over here, it's easy to rip the fish's mouth if your line doesn't stretch. Now, some guys I know use braid for their buzz baits and their walking baits, and I have from time to time. If the water's real dirty or I don't have to worry about the fish really seeing it well, I'll put that on there. But most of the time, I like to throw my baits that need to stay on top. I'll throw them on this monofilament line because it stretches. It's got a little give to it, so when the fish bites it, it'll stretch a little bit, and I don't have to worry so much about ripping their cheeks out. I'm running this on I bought this reel at Walmart. This is an Abu Garcia 6-4-to-1 Silver Max baitcaster. This is an excellent starter reel. I have some others I'll talk about later that I prefer. This is the ones that I started getting into and started throwing, man, because they were 40 bucks. I could afford them, put them on here. They've lasted a long time and done well. Let's talk about ratios for just a minute. This is a 6-4-to-1 ratio. What that means is for every one crank of the handle, the reel spins in here 6.4 times. That means it's taking up approximately 28 to 31 inches of line that it's pulling in. That's other reel, the spinning reel that I showed you. It was I think it was a 5-to-2-to-1 or 5-to-3-to-1. That's only pulling in maybe 21 to 24 inches of line. So it's a slower retrieve. This is a faster retrieve. Now, to tell you how I'm learning, I have learned that for a buzzbait, you need a faster reel, the fastest reel you can possibly get, so that when you cast that out there, you can get that buzzbait back up on the top. And so one of my next purchases will be to upgrade this reel to a 7-to-1, which is going to be taking up anywhere from 31 to 36 inches of line. I read one the other day, it was a 7-6-to-1, and it took up 42 inches of line per crank. That's incredibly fast. So something like that is what I will upgrade to in short time. As I said, I have 2 topwater rods. The reason for that being, there's different reasons for needing topwater. That rod, again, buzzbaits and spooks is about all I throw on that one. Some of my floating jerkbaits I'll throw on that one. But the other rod and reel I have. This is an American Rodsmith 6.5 foot. It's a medium to medium heavy action with 12-pound monofilament line. You'll see I have a fluke tied on here. I fish with a gentleman who loves to run the trolling motor, and he's a buzzbait guy. And he's going to throw a buzzbait. If we go out in the morning, he's going to throw it from daylight till 10, 11, 12 o'clock during the day. He'll throw that same crazy buzzbait. I don't like throwing a buzzbait if he's throwing a buzzbait. And so what I'll do is I'll tie on a fluke, or I will tie on a popar, or some bait that's designed to mimic a dying shad, a dying minnow, that's either staying still or just darting around just a little bit, like this does. Piece of advice here. You got a guy in the front of the boat throwing a buzzbait, you tie on a fluke, and when he runs past his spot, wherever his initial target was that he hit with his buzzbait, when he's pulled out of it, you throw your fluke right on that spot. Whenever he's running that buzzbait, it's attracting fish to that spot. They are looking for fish, looking for shad that are dying. This looks like a dying shad. It's exactly what they're looking for. They hear it, they're looking for it, they want to see it. You throw it at that spot, they see this, they nail it. Or, same scenario, throw a popar out there, especially one if it's got your back treble hook on it, has a feather on it, looks like a little, this little tail flipping. Throw that in there and just fish it slow wherever that buzzbait has just been through. And it's kind of nice. I keep both of these rods handy in the boat with me all the time. The buzzbait, obviously you can cast that a lot farther because it's heavier. And so if I'm fishing, I'm working toward the bank, and behind me somewhere there's a big splash, school comes up, I can grab that buzzbait and I can pretty much hit anything within 50 yards of me. This, if it's something closer to me, I'll throw this one here. I'll pick this up and throw it out there real quick. So those are the two. Oh, forgot the reel. The reel I have on this is an H2O Express 6-3-to-1 bait caster. This is an Academy Sports brand reel. It's made off the Shimano type prototypes. This is a $49.99 reel. It's an excellent reel to get started with. It's a little fatter than I like, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But it's a great reel, great starter reel, keep you under 50 bucks, and you got great settings on it. Moving right along, worms and jig rods. This is my wacky worm rod. You'll see on here, I've got the wacky worm tied on, 5-inch Cinco. Also H2O Express 6-3-to-1 reel, same reel. But this is a Lumiglass 7-foot 2-inch medium to medium heavy action. It's called the Cinco Special. I don't know if you can see that on there. It is the Cinco Special. This rod is designed just for wacky worming, or if you want to Texas rig this thing. But it's mainly made for this bait right here. One of my friends that's an avid fisherman, he gave me this rod. I'm so blessed to have this rod. This rod has put more fish in the boat probably than any I've ever had. Highly recommend wacky worming. If you are just starting out bass fishing and you want to learn the nuances of how fish act, throw the wacky worm. Years ago it was start somebody on a crankbait, let them get, just throw that out there. Some fish will hit a crankbait. This wacky worm, big fish, small fish, all fish hit this worm. I've caught big bluegill on it. We've caught just about everything on this thing. My wife, not being an avid fisherman, I put a jig head with this on there, I waited it to get it down. She threw that and caught a 4-pound largemouth. Like I mentioned, a guy a couple weeks ago, he threw a wacky worm, caught a 3.5-pound largemouth. It's great for introducing people to bass fishing. My son, he was 4 years old. One of them, the first bass he caught, and he caught it on a wacky worm. Both my boys learning how to fish using the wacky worm. I strongly recommend it. But this rod is made just for wacky worming. Now to take it up, I didn't mention the line, I'm sorry. 12-pound fluorocarbon. This is when I start getting into my vicious fluorocarbon line. Some guys with their wacky worms will throw lighter lines. I throw in a lot of brush, and so I need something that's a little thicker, a little more abrasive. resistant, and so I like this 12-pound vicious for this wacky worm. And with that rod, that setup, I can cast it 20, 30 yards with that light weight on it, so it's pretty nice. Moving up to the next one. One of the things I want to talk about now are scratch and dent rods. A lot of companies will have rods that they'll break a tip off, they'll break a line guide off, be scratched up, something aesthetically wrong with it that could easily be repaired. This is a Denali Norwood Series custom finesse jig 6 foot 10 inch rod. This particular rod, if you can see it or not, this is a classic looking rod. This rod retails for $369. If you are anywhere around Mountain Home, Arkansas, north central Arkansas, so where I'm from, used to live there, about a mile from Walmart is the Denali Rod Shop. That's where their headquarters are. Walk in the door, look to your right, they have 2 large racks of scratch and dent rods. This is a $369 rod. I paid $80 for it. It was missing, the tip was broke off, and they had put a new tip on it. That's the only thing wrong with this rod. I love it. It's designed, as it said, for custom finesse jig, which is small jigs. Any type of small jig that you're using, small worms, and then my personal go-to bait, if I'm going to fish anything, I'm throwing a baby brush hog. I love baby brush hogs. You see I've got a number, I think it's a number 2 Gamakatsu hook on it, offset hook. I've got a tungsten bullet weight right here. Throwing this on 12-pound fluorocarbon line. This is, like I said, this is my go-to bait. I use a Bass Pro Nitro Z Tournament Special reel. This reel you can only buy online. They do not sell it in the stores. Normally online it's $99. 2 or 3 times a year they will run this on special. They'll run it for $59, and it is well worth the money. It's got some of the best adjustments on it that you can set. I was telling my dad about it, and I said it's almost backlash proof. And I've had some people prove me wrong on that, but I've got it set to where I very, very seldom backlash this thing. It's a great setup. It's a 6-4-1 also. Highly recommend it. You won't go wrong throwing this reel. Making sure I've covered the bait line, all that stuff. Okay, so that's a great rod. This rod here is designed for baits that are 1/4 to 5/8 ounce. The 1/4 ounce baits allow you to fish the small jigs, the small worms, maybe a 4-inch worm, 5-inch, 6, 8-inch worm, something in that line. Maybe even a hair jig. Some of the small jigs, I like throwing rage craws on the jigs, Strike King rage craws. They've got the baby rage craws, and some of those. This rod is good for that. But what if you want to go up to the next line? If you ever, around Mountain Home, you have Bull Shoals Lake, Norfolk Lake. Those are deep water lakes, deep ledges. It's nothing to go over there and fish in 50 foot of water and throw 13-inch ringtail worms. It's incredible the big baits that we use. I really don't want to use that rod throwing those bigger baits. If I'm upgrading and I've got a 1/2 ounce or 3/4 ounce bullet weight plus my big worm, the whole thing is going to weigh over 1 ounce. And so that's where this rod comes in. This is a Denali. Again, it's a Denali rod. Rosewood Series. This is a $180 rod. Picked it up, scratch and dent. The tip was broke off about that much. Put a new eye guide on it. I think I paid $40, $50 for this rod right here. Incredibly sensitive. It's a custom worm and jig, 7 foot, heavy action, 1/2 to 1 ounce. And I'm running it on my new favorite reels. And this is what I wanted to get to. I'm starting to upgrade these reels. This is a Lew's 6-4-1 speed spool. Lew's reels, you can get these at Walmart. This one here I believe was about $64. It's worth every penny of that. I have on here this line, about forgot, this is 15-pound vicious fluorocarbon line. Just an excellent setup. You can see I have on here a large brush hog. This is not the baby brush hog, this is the large one. I also throw the larger jigs with this, football jigs, cranking jigs, all those swim jigs, large swim jigs. That's great on this rod right here. Again, a 7-foot heavy action. It's just great for getting those baits down there, and it's for whatever you want to upgrade to the next to the larger style worm. Now let's talk about flipping jigs. This is one of mine I call the Mini Beast. I have another one that I call the Beast, and so this is my Mini Beast. This is a Denali covert reel. I think these run about $130, somewhere in that range. This one was, again, missing a tip. I paid $65, I think, for this one. This reel right here is a Lose 7.1 to 1. It's a little bit faster. This one's picking up about 35 inches of line per crank. I'm running this on 17-pound fluorocarbon. You'll see I have a football jig tied on. Just a typical punch. I'm sorry, not a punch bait, but just a jig. I'll throw this in brush. But I will also, this is the one that I'm going to throw also if I'm running jigs in that 40-foot range. I've got a lake near here where I live, a private lake that I fish. It's an old quarry, and it's 100 foot deep at one end, and there's some ledges in it that are in the 50-foot range, and those bass will get out there and suspend on them 50-foot ranges. And this is the rod I'll use to get these big football jigs down to it. This is a 7-foot 8-inch extreme heavy rod. 5/16 up to 1.5 ounces. This thing will throw the big boys. I can't sing its praises enough. It's a beast. And I'm trying to think of something else. It's great for pitching. I do a lot of pitching up into some grass mats. I've got another rod I'm going to show you for that. A lot of brush. There's a lot of overhanging brush, things like that. This is a rod I'm going to be flipping stuff into. So really nice setup, and then take it to the next level. This is I nickname all my rods something. So this is what I call Blue Thunder. This is an H2O Express 7'3" heavy action rod. This is an Academy Sports brand rod. It's made off of an Abu Garcia guide, and it's just an excellent rod. I've caught so many fish on this. I have on this one an Abu Garcia 631 Silver Max. I want you to notice something on here. For those of you just starting out, there's a switch right here, and this switch allows you that when you push your thumb bar down, when you let off the thumb bar will come up and it'll stop your reel. It's designed, it's called a flipping switch. It allows you to learn how to flip, use that thumb bar to stop your reel so you don't backlash. And it's a great learning tool. If you're just starting to learn how to pitch, this is a great reel to start with. Flipping and pitching is a great reel to start with to learn. I have 65-pound braid on this one. I use this for frog fishing. If I'm throwing a frog, this is one of my favorite frogs right here, Strike King Sexy Frog. It's a great, trying to get it out of the glare there for you. It's a great frog. I throw that on this rod right here. I also throw what I call a punch jig. This is something that a lot of pros are using now. I discovered this actually by mistake. I was in a rod shop somewhere and just got to dreaming and saw this. I want to explain what we've got going. I have right here these sinker stoppers. Some of them are just a line peg that slides on. I have a 3/4 ounce bullet weight, and then I have, it's made by Gambler, and it's called a punch skirt. It's a skirt that slides up and down the line, and it allows you to put a skirt on your Texas rigged craws. This is a Rage Craw. I've got you'll see I have a flipping hook. This is a Trocar. I believe it's a number 3. I want you to notice that right here it has the bait grabs. I call them bait grabs. Great for keeping your bait hooked onto this thing. Let me rig this thing up right here. Flip it around. These razor sharp hooks are awesome. Just set it in there nice and neat. Make sure it's hidden. Run that all down. And this is one nice, if you're throwing matted grass, if you're throwing lily pads, if you're throwing up into deep, thick brush, this is the setup to use. It's called a punch jig. Highly recommend it. Mark Menendez, one of the Elite Series pros, he uses it all the time. It's a great setup. Again, I highly recommend it, and especially on one of these 7'3" heavy action rods, braided line, you'll catch a lot of fish doing that. One of the things I like about braid doesn't stretch. Braid is also very sensitive. Using a rage crawl, these rage crawls are designed, and I want to try to show you this. I don't know if you can see it or not, but on these little claws, they have, there it is, you can see the edge that's around the claw, the little thin edge that's around it. This claw is so active in the water when it falls. On this rod, I can throw this out there and click my line, let it go tight. As it's falling, you can feel little flippers. And there's been multiple times that I've been feeling it. I know it's not at the bottom, and all of a sudden I notice they're not flipping. Reel down, set the hook. Some fish just caught it in its mouth. It's just a really great setup, and I highly recommend it. Now then, finally, my other favorite type of fishing, crankbait fishing. Love fishing crankbaits. Really just started throwing crankbaits a few years ago. This rod is a non-branded rod. The shaft itself is made by Benchmark. This is a custom rod that was made for a pro that I met, and I was able to buy this off him for 35 bucks. It's a 7', 8" medium action cranking stick. I don't know how to describe this rod to you other than it's amazing. I use this rod. Now you notice I don't have a reel on it right now. I'm upgrading the reel that's on this. I'm going to put a Lew's 6-4-1 on this one. Any of my crankbaits that dive in the 0 to 12 foot range, I use this rod for. I'll put it on 15-pound vicious fluorocarbon line because I'm banging those crankbaits around rocks. I'm banging them around stumps, through brush. I know a lot of guys, they like to downsize, go down a 10-pound test to try to get that bait down deeper. On this rod, I'm not worried about getting my bait down too deep. I want it banging around stuff because it's when it deflects off things is when the fish hit it. And so this rod is great for that. Again, anything 0 to the 12 foot range, something with a medium action to it. Medium heavy is kind of where this blank is. It'll help you catch a lot of fish in that more shallow range. And then I have what is my personal favorite rod. This is an American Rod Smith 7-foot Carolina medium. Designed for Carolina rigging. I'm not much of a Carolina rigging guy. It's just not. It's not a technique that I use very often. I do every once in a while if the fish are real sluggish, if it's real slow or real cold, something like that. If they're suspended out there and they're not moving, they're not very hungry, then I'll use Carolina rigging, and I'll use this rod to do it. But this is my favorite rod for throwing Strike King 6XD and 5XD crankbaits. Anything from 12 foot to 20 foot. If it's diving in that range. Also, any spinner baits that I'm throwing. I'm throwing it on this reel right here. This is a Lew's 5-4-1 reel. I have 12-pound. 12-pound fluorocarbon on this one. Sometimes I'll go down to 10 pounds because I'm not really banging these crankbaits off stuff. I'm not worried about my line getting wrapped around brush piles, things like that. When I'm in that range, I'm mainly going after schooling fish. And so I'll throw this, get it down there, get a little bit lighter line to get the bait down a little bit deeper, and just work it, and the fish respond to it. This 5-4-1 reel, it is a little bit slower. It's only pulling in about 23 inches at a time, but it's geared. Think of riding a 10-speed bicycle, and you're going to climb a hill. You're going to take that thing down, down in your gears so that you don't have to work as hard to pull through. When you're pulling a 6XD crankbait in the 18 to 20 foot range, there's a lot of resistance. It's hard to crank, and so a reel like this really makes it easier. It makes it easier to crank. Especially on a rod like this that is it's just got great action to it. Again, it's a medium heavy style rod, 7 foot. If you're only going to have one rod and you've decided, you know what, I want to get into bass fishing, I'll do a bait caster, but I can only afford one. My advice is get a 7-foot medium heavy action. Look on here and see this one right here. It says lure weight 1/4 to 5/8. If you find one that says 1/4 to 1 ounce, that's the rod to get. Abu Garcia makes one called the Veritas. You can pick them up at Walmart for $39. It is a great rod. I just set a friend of mine up with that. I hooked him up. It was a rod I had that I loved, and I let him borrow it, and he loved it. He started catching bass for the first time ever, and so I gave him that rod because it's just it's a great rod. Highly recommend it. So anything like this, where to go down to 1/4 and go up to a full ounce, 7-foot medium heavy, that's the rod that you want to get to start with. And I would suggest a 6/4 to 1 reel, something in the middle there. That's what you'd want to go with if you're only going to have one. And then finally, the last rod I have is the one I call the Beast. This is a Bass Pro Shop Bionic Blade, 7 foot 6 inches. It's an expandable rod. I want you to notice here that it collapses down. This will help you get it in some rod boxes in boats are only 7 foot long, or just maybe 7 foot 2 inches, something like that. And so this rod is designed to collapse a little bit. Makes it nice. This rod is also, it is a heavy action rod, and somewhere on here, turn around, I want to read it to you. It says 3/8 to 2 ounces. So this thing will throw up to a 2 ounce bait. And you see I have on here a 6-inch flutter spoon. This is Strike King flutter spoon. I love this, especially if you've got suspended fish out there. If you're anywhere around Kentucky Lake or some of these lakes where you've got a lot of suspended fish, a big spoon is the way to go. You need a rod like this to do that with. This is also an Alabama rig rod. When I'm throwing my Alabama rig, I'm throwing it on this rod. It can handle the big stuff. Now, I have an old, as you can see here, an old Abu Garcia Ambassador 5000 reel. This is a 5.3 to 1, I believe it is, or 5.2 to 1 reel. When I throw that Alabama rig out there, and it has, if I'm fishing, in Arkansas, and I've got five swim baits hooked on that thing, that joker's weighing over 2 ounces. And I don't want to be wore out throwing that thing. And so I use this old Abu Garcia Ambassador reel, geared low. I think this actually came off a catfish rod, but it has worked excellent for me. I also use this rod to throw the Strike King 10XD crankbait. That's the big boy that dives 25 to 30 foot. I've got this, right now I've got it on 15-pound fluorocarbon. That's what I put on there for this flutter spoon. If I'm throwing the Alabama rig, sometimes I'll go to braid, or I'll go up to 20-pound fluoro. This one here, I've mainly used it for that. It would also make a great flipping stick if you just wanted to buy one. Make a good flipping stick, but it's a workhorse and it will wear you out because of how much the thing weighs. And so that's where I advise getting a lower gear ratio on your reel so you don't get worn out in the process. So those are my 10 rods. All the settings I have on them. Again, I'm in the process of upgrading, and so I know over time I'm going to be changing reels, changing lines, little things like that. If you have any suggestions for me, please feel free to share those. I'm trying to look at my notes here. I think I've covered everything. Anyway, if you have any questions, just tag it on the post here, and I'll respond as best I can. And tight lines and great fishing. Thanks.